Good evening and good day, everybody. This is Under the Shell podcast number 11. And today we're honored to have Michael Levine in our podcast. And I am super excited because I've watched a ton of his videos and I have two tons of questions. So, good evening, good day to you, gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. Anything that Wyatt does is always keeping me intrigued, and I'm excited to talk to you guys and talk drums because literally, if anybody knows that I can talk forever about drums, it's Wyatt. He knows I'll talk literally every single aspect of it that you could just delve into. It's literally my life.
Lindsay said to me in the car, she said, we were just out, and she says, as I'm getting back, so who's your guest today? And I was like, oh, it's Michael Levine. And she's like, oh, that's going to be an easy one. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to set him up and let him run, and the content's going to flow, baby.
Yeah, hell yeah, baby. So I actually haven't met Dimitriar. Is that how you say your
Dimitar.
name?
Dimitar, yeah, you
Dimitar.
can call me
Actually,
Dim if it's easier.
awesome, Dim. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you, and I'm excited to hear your questions, and we can
Same, bro,
go from there.
same.
All right, cool. So, Dimitar, yeah, do you want to start us off, man?
Yeah, sure. I want to start by saying that when I started 1 year ago, Michael was one of the few drummers alongside Wyatt that I was watching. And one thing that still to this day, having in thought that, I'm way more experienced in doing videos, is I'm still so fucking bummed out by his video quality. And I'm like, my fucking god.
Ah.
I don't know if you're actually. This is my first question. Do you do everything about the video, like shooting, editing?
Yes, so everything, all of my content is done in-house, recording, mixing, doing all the video editing. I started my YouTube channel, and I do not promote this, and please don't do this, but whatever. I have videos back when YouTube actually wasn't even a video platform. It was actually, believe it or not, when YouTube first came out, it was it was like a dating simulator type thing where you could post like videos of yourself on there. And this is like
Really?
YouTube beta. Yeah, this goes back way back, and I have videos posted that long ago. So I've been doing content creation forever. I never really cared too much to get the views. Every once in a while I would do like the back in the day, whatever the middle frame was in a video, that was your thumbnail. So I would splice in like I would splice in like some spicy hot senoritas in there and stuff like that. Get a crazy amount of views. But
Oh yeah.
I have videos dating back from that long where I just enjoyed watching myself play because that then I could go back and fix technique problems and things like that. And we used to I was in I did drum corps and I did drumline and everything back in the day. So you always had a second set of eyes watching you saying, "Hey, fix your technique. Hey, you're going German grip on this. Hey," they used to call me Wild Wild West because where your fulcrum is on your thumb and your index finger, that's supposed to be closed. And I would always stick my fingers out like I was doing pistol guns, and they would call me Wild Wild West. So having a second set of eyes to look at your technique and watch how you do things, that's important to me. So when I started delving into the video aspect, I finally like found, hey, this is great for my content, but not only that, but I can fix the errors that I've been making and the things like that. And then a couple amazing videographers kind of blew up in my town, and I'm very humbled to have them as like really good close friends. So they were able to help me be like, hey, do this, and kind of teach me the ropes. But at the end of the day, this is what I've always said about anything. When you see someone is doing something really well, that means that they're passionate about it. So, Wyatt is amazingly passionate about drums and about content creation. I'm amazingly passionate about trying to get a cinematic look and a cinematic
Oh
kind
yeah.
of idea from it. So when you're passionate about something, that's, we all put all of our effort into learning every single thing about that. But still to this day, I do not want to claim to know anything about videography or recording or mixing drums, because there are people in this world that are just so beyond amazing at doing things like that, like Orlando Drummer, like some of these guys, their technique is way further than anything I could ever, one day I'll get there, but by the time I'm there, they're going to be 20 years better, but
Yeah.
yeah, so as far as like the video aspect, I do shoot everything. I shoot everything currently on an A7 Mark III. It's a Sony camera,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm switching over to the red Komodo though by the end of the year. Actually, in a couple months, I've got the Komodo coming in. So shooting raw format video, it's really cool. The comparisons I've made from video and recording and drums. They actually have a lot of similar aspects, and there's a lot of cool things that when you learn one thing, one set of skills, you can actually apply it to all these other things. So that's why sometimes you see a lot of these creators doing everything in house, because once you have mastered one thing, you can kind of take some of those concepts and move them over.
Yeah, 100%. That's what happened for me was like I figured out the basics of audio and then you get familiar with the timeline. And then from there it's like not too far off when you step into a video editor, right? And there's like
Yeah.
definitely a lot between suites and between concepts. You know, there's a lot that can be said, even just understanding well, not only how to capture sound, but how to light a subject. There's definitely some parallels there, you know. And if you figure out one, you're not too far off being able to sort of put together the other one. So
Well, take for
very cool.
example Chris Gazelle. Like he's showing you, like, I'm sure he's doing some. I saw that he's been doing some mixing stuff with you. Having a mentor like that, somebody who knows that world way more than me and you both together, is great to have as a friend, because then you can literally just hit him up and be like, "Hey, what about this? Hey, what about that?" Instead of and I feel like the personal aspect of having like it's almost like having personal assistant that knows everything about that world. I always forget his last name. It's DeLeo or DeGrasso. He does 4K video stuff. He's been shooting for like big production movies and things like that recently, and he became a good friend of mine. And I've been hitting him up about Red Komodo stuff. How do I get this look? How do I do that? And he's been able to just like help me out with that. So having those heavy hitters in our back pocket, that's also a cool way to be able to get the best out of that realm.
Yeah,
Per se.
Chris is insane, dude. I know you had some back and forth with him, right? Because I remember talking at
Yeah,
one
yeah.
point. I remember talking at one point and being like, "Holy shit, what did you change?" And then you were like, "Bro, my friend Chris has been showing me stuff, whatever, whatever." And like,
Yeah.
it was literally like after you talked to Chris, it was like night and day on your mixes. You know,
Yeah,
like they were
Chris.
fine before, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
it was
Chris
something
is
else.
insane. Not only that, I actually knew him from his brother. So I did some stuff with Falling in Reverse, and his brother is playing with Falling in Reverse. That's kind of how we all um, met up. And then I saw he was doing stuff with Jared Dines, and we were all kind of like doing stuff together. So he was just always in that circle, and it was bound to mix. We were bound to become best friends.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude, hell yeah. Anthony's pretty awesome too. We've got him not next week, but the week after.
Yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. They
Yeah.
slam.
Anyways, Dimitar, hit him with a question, bro.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to know more about the editing because every time, actually, first, okay, first things first, I'm seeing you way more in Facebook than in YouTube. So, why is that? Why did you choose Facebook and
Um,
Instagram?
I actually post everything. I post, yeah, majority of my content is posted on Facebook and on YouTube and on Instagram. I have chosen Instagram as my main focus because I feel like for the big heavy people, like the big players in the game that are in the AAA bands and the really big name, production companies, big tour managers, big lighting guys, all those guys are on Instagram more than they are on Facebook and on YouTube. I feel like Instagram is like my my LinkedIn, if that makes sense. So Instagram is like my portfolio of what I could do for the big name people. It's like my resume. Whereas YouTube is more of like for your content creation for just like normal everyday people, and then Facebook is kind of like an intermediate. But I've noticed that on YouTube, I used to get crazy views. I played in a band called Bermuda back a long time ago. It was like a death metal band based out of California. And, I was playing technical death metal back then. So I was doing all these like crazy videos and I was getting awesome views. And then I started playing with like, I finally got some really good gigs and got even bigger views on my videos. But then out of nowhere, just something happened and my viewership just kind of like went down and dwindled and dwindled and dwindled to the point where now it's just kind of like it just trickles in, which I don't really care. I love creating. That's the thing. If these videos, I hate to say it, they're not really for anybody. They're for myself first. I enjoy creating and I enjoy pushing the boundaries of figuring out video and drumming and things like that. Now, at the end of the day, the sole reason I do this is to continue to get better in the industry. So being a tech for these bigger bands, now I could come and say, hey, I've got a video side of me, or hey, I've got this side of me, or now with mixing, I know about mixing way more than I used to. So now when I go to these bigger shows and things like that, I'll know what the front of house guy's doing. I might even be able to help him out. And those things, those aspects are why I started my YouTube channels and stuff like that. But now, like, I see more viewership and views off of Facebook, which I think that's just kind of like everybody gets more because the algorithm is cheat that way. I feel like Wyatt is like the golden child for drummers right now, because what he's doing is he's creating inspiring content, and people are coming over and they're watching his content, but it's a job for him. Like, that's a straight up job on YouTube. And that is like inspiring, not only to me, but seeing his growth and things like that in YouTube is inspiring. I wish I could get those kinds of views. And I bet if I really buckled down and just put out constant video on YouTube, I could. But as of right now, it's really just, I just kind of go to where the most views are, which is Facebook. So that's really one of the main reasons why Facebook and Instagram are my main two platforms.
Okay, I got one more, and then I give the word to Wyatt.
Actually, I just want to talk quick about what
Yeah.
he brought up, especially with the Instagram side of things. That's actually a really great point, and I 100% agree with it, is that YouTube is much more consumer-focused in comparison to Instagram. And it didn't really hit me until you brought that up. Because when you said it, I was like, is that true? And then examples just started flowing to my head. I'm like, yep. And like to think about even, like I know you and some of your stories with some of your past projects, and I know that a lot of them you've literally landed just through Instagram DMs,
Exactly.
And that's crazy. And that's exactly, I've had similar experiences, but definitely not to your degree because you have more performance experience than me in your past. That's a really great point for content creators at home, is understanding what the platforms are in which you're manipulating and understand what their strengths are, and don't just post everywhere just because, format your posts in a way that makes sense for what you're trying to communicate to, and understanding whether or not this is a portfolio or this is a public consumed product is a good thing to consider when creating all your material, and maybe it's a bit of both, but how are you going to have content for portfolio and for industry professionals and to land gigs, and how are you going to differentiate that between something that's just downright entertaining? And it can be really difficult to do that. Sorry, Dimitar, go ahead, hit him.
I'm just spraying random questions. So one other thing that I'm really interested in is regarding your editing, because your videos, unlike any other drum channel, including mine, Wyatt's, even Luke Holland, Matt McGuire, your videos are pretty unique because there seems to be an inhuman amount of editing and transitions, and oh my god, and even sometimes I feel it's too much for me, because not that it's bad, but it's just like I'm so amazed by all the editing and transitions, I forget to watch what you're playing. So
So I'm about to tell you guys my secret of all secrets, and this is literally, I found this out, and I've only told like a few people how I do what I do so fast. So I go to the gym, I listen to the song on repeat over and over and over again, and I'm just listening to really the patterns, like any of the transitions that I'm going to have to try to figure out as far as drum playing wise. I go to the practice space and I play through the song once, and then I put the camera on my feet. I always do the first take with my feet and I don't record the mix. So I just play it through with just my feet. Then I'll take the camera and do usually about 3 to 4 angles using a slider so that it looks like it's going to be handheld in post. So the slider is just going to move it left and right. And then the final shot will be my main shot, because by then, by the fourth or fifth take of playing through the song, I'm pretty tight with the song. But in Logic, which is the DAW that I use, I have all of those takes recorded. So let's say I have 4 takes of the song recorded with drums on all 4. Well, that last take is going to be pretty much my main take. But then in post, so now I'm done recording everything. I edit everything down and I bounce out that entire session. So now that entire session has 4 different drum takes with the song on it. And what I do is in Final Cut, I'll take all 4 of those videos, I'll sync up the videos with the audio file that is attached to it, and I'll put them all in Logic, all in Final Cut in a big stem. I'll make a compound clip of everything so that I pretty much am making comps, which are like comps in DAW is like when you mess up.
Mhm.
So I'm making comps, but I'm doing the comps in Final Cut. So let's say that I'm going through it. I'm like, okay, well, I screwed up here. So now I'm going to use this take instead of that take. And then go on. Oh, now I want to go to this take. And then sometimes, let's say the visual of one looks better, but the audio in the other look is different. Then I'll take that take, but then I'll zoom in on something so you can't see the mistake. Or I'll do a fast
Oh.
transition, or I'll do like a really fast transition, or there's a million different little tricks that you can do to try to fix the perfectionism.
Now I
But
see.
yeah, so that's how I do my editing. And then the final thing I do is I do grade everything using cinematic LUTs and things like that. And then I usually, like lately, I've been delving into doing some After Effects, some like just little things to just kind of make everything pop a little bit. And the most recent thing is I've always noticed these guitar players, they always do these guitar playthroughs with their computer behind them, and it's usually like showing them tracking the guitar
Oh
part.
yeah, I know
So I
what you're
said,
talking about.
yeah, so I said, screw you all. I'm gonna get a 65-inch TV. And put the 65-inch TV. It's really more like just a flex on guitar players because of all their stupid shenanigans that they love to do. But
Dude.
that's my process that I go through.
Yeah,
Dude, that's so funny. There's this channel I was just checking out like last night, and he has the same thing. He has, I think he uses, it looked like Cubase. I mean, Cubase can look pretty similar to Pro Tools. I don't know, whatever. But it was one of those
Yeah.
2 DAWs, and it was up on this like 65, 70-inch flat screen right beside the kit. And it was literally like he's looking straight, and it was directly to his right, but his camera was directly to his left, kind of like what I do from my main angle, where you're looking at the hi-hat,
Yeah.
hi-hat
Yeah.
first, then China last. So the perspective of the camera, basically all you could see was like this massive fucking TV on the wall behind him with all the tracks.
You're like, what the hell?
Yeah,
That's
dude,
hilarious.
it looks sick though. Very cool. Do you
Yeah.
actually use it to control Logic from the kit, or is it literally just there for aesthetic?
It's there for aesthetics. Eventually, this is just kind of, I just threw that up there maybe like a month ago. Eventually, I have some ideas of using it almost as a green screen, possibly putting the band's music video playing behind me. I did some drum playthroughs with some other drummers that flew down. There's this band called Catabasis. They recorded here in Birmingham, and I did their drummer. And so we put their band's logo behind there. So it's just convenient just to have it. I mean, I'm just honestly, I'm just lazy and just like I don't want to take the time to to do anything. So I just throw back. I just literally have an HDMI connected to my MacBook, and it's just displaying what's on the MacBook. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, since you said about your process of recording with your cameras, this is what Wyatt and I have been talking about a lot, especially when I started. So, because he's doing pretty much what you're doing, like using one camera and doing a bunch of takes, and this was what I was doing when I started, but I find that me myself it's hard for me even when I learn a song. It's pretty hard to play it note for note every single time, and
Yeah.
I like to improvise a lot, and I get ghost notes in, or I change just a little bit, the breaks, the fills, whatever.
Yeah.
So this was pretty much not working for me because I was very oftenly in situations where I'm at a spot and there is not even a single take out of all the five takes that I'm actually playing what I should. So
Yeah.
I decided to opt for three separate cameras. So I'm just doing one shots, and this way I'm sure that every angle is playing the same thing. So how do you deal with that, and what do you think about it? Is it better to? Well, I guess there
Um.
is no better, but what's
Yeah.
your
It's
take on
not.
it?
Yeah. It's all based on your comfortability. So first of all, in none of my videos am I playing the parts exactly ever. I'm never. There's always um, I'm always doing my own thing, and sometimes I'm doing my own thing so bad that you can even hear the other drummer's snare drum on 2 and 4, and I'm on and I'm on the back beat of 4 or something, So I'm always doing just whatever I feel like doing. And what I've been doing as far as like the mixing side of that is I just kind of mix the song a little lower in so that my drums are way more pronounced. So it's not something that you would want to listen to like by itself. You would never want to just listen to one of my mixes, but if you watch the video of me playing it, it's just so drum heavy that whatever the drummer is doing, and if there is a mistake, it's we're human. Problems happen all the time. I used to quantize absolutely every single take that I ever did. Um, just because if I quantized it, it sounded tighter and better in the mix. Because then, whatever 90% of the music that we're recording to is quantized drums, anyways. So if you quantize your drums to them, it's going to sound tighter, it's going to sound better. But as far as doing it two different ways, the only reason why I do the single shot technique is that way I can put out a video in a few hours. So
Yeah.
instead of me sitting there and learning the parts and making sure that one take is perfect, now I know I'm going in and I know for a fact it's going to take me about 5 takes. But let's say in the intro and first verse I'm killing it, but the outro I've sucked at. Well, by the fifth take, the back half of the song might be perfect, but the first take, the first half of the song might be perfect. So then that just means I just do more cuts, honestly. So there's a lot more cuts happening
Mm-hmm.
when there's different parts going on, if that makes sense. As
Yeah.
far as mistakes, like never be afraid to make mistakes. I mean, like I have so many videos of me just playing very sloppily, um, and we're human, so it is what it is. We mistakes are what I think make the videos good in a sense. They make them enjoying to watch. And what I've done a step further is I've just tried to mask it with really beautiful cameras and a lot of cinematography. So just to go back to your previous point, the fact that sometimes you get lost in my edits is a good thing. So now you're not seeing the sloppy playing.
So, what is your along the lines of the quantized stuff? Because this can be a hot topic among people uploading. Not as much, obviously, real drummers, because for feel like real drummers don't give a shit what's going on because we understand the process, but it can definitely be something that is debated online, whether or not that's good to do or not. And it's only ever debated among people who understand what's going on too. So like there's like a lot of people don't even really understand that that's a possibility. But yeah, what's your take on it? Why did you always do it? What was the change in philosophy? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of studio gigs lately, and I have delved away from it just because I'm getting my chops back. I used to have crazy chops, insane chops, and then I lost them because just didn't really. I wasn't getting the gigs that I wanted, so I feel like when I wasn't getting the gigs that I wanted, I wouldn't practice as much. But then when I would get the gigs that I wanted, now I'm chopping out parts. So lately, I've been in studio sessions with. Actually, this past weekend, I got the amazing opportunity to record at Mastodon Studio in Atlanta, and those guys were up there, and they were some of the coolest dudes. And their studio is just so crazy; it's insane. And I'm playing on an old vintage Slingerland kit with a old Ludwig Black Beauty, like, and the guy wanted just raw, just lay back in the pocket. He didn't want to quantize anything. And I love that. I love that aspect. But I also realized that mainstream media and music is quantized, 90% of it. So it's funny that any of these kids out there or these people out there that say, I would never quantize this and that. I guarantee you, if you said name your top 5 bands, that 4 of them are quantized drums on there, because it is
I
what
would say
mainstream
5.
media. Yeah, yeah, it's just what mainstream music is. It's what it is. It's perfect. We want, as humans, we want to strive for perfection. So if you can make me perfect, you can make me perfect. Now, in the past, the reason I was quantizing the drums was because I wanted them to sound really good. And when I don't care who you are, how amazing of a player you are, there's gonna be flams happening all throughout the music
Oh
where
yeah.
you're just that's just the mark of the beast. So that's really why I was doing it in the past. Honestly, I'd say the main reason was I just didn't know any better. I just thought it sounded better. But instead, because I've been in studio sessions so much now, playing to a track is a lot more fluid for me. So I don't have to quantize anymore. And I've actually found that in Logic, which is the DAW that I use, quantizing sucks. Pro Tools is there's a reason why drummers really love to use Pro Tools, because quantizing in Pro Tools is perfect. It doesn't cut out a lot of the transient, which is the first attack of the note. Whereas Logic has a problem where when you quantize it, it seems to sound thin. It really makes the snare drum sound thin and things like that, because it's cutting out the very beginning of the transient. So Logic isn't that great at producing quantized drums that well. So that is another reason why I just kind of like started to stray away from it. But I mean, I sometimes I still do quantize it. I feel like it really depends on the material. If you're playing some material that is literally perfect, then quantize it, make it perfect. And if you're playing material that's laid back and groovy, then don't quantize it. Let it lay back and groovy. It really just depends on what the context of the material is.
Yeah, I would say 5 out of 5. As of what, like 2012, I guess. Basically, it
Oh
was the
yeah,
Joey Sturgis stuff, because it was like that's when guitars started to be 100% slip edited as well, and everything was
yeah,
all completely digital at that point. And then from that point on, it was like now that the technology's there, everybody started doing it, and now when I go to learn a song, I'll drop into the DAW and write out my parts in MIDI right away over top of it, so that I have something to read while I'm actually practicing the song. And
See, that's
and the
cool.
parts, yeah. Well, when I drop it in MIDI, I know right away if this track was quantized. And there's not a single song from 2015 forward that isn't perfectly edited, slip edited, lined up, whatever you want to call it, quantized, whatever fucking word you want to call it, because it's different in every DAW.
Yeah.
Flex edited if you're in Logic, right?
Yeah.
So,
Flex time.
but yeah, flex. But anyways, so from 2015 on, that was the case. But then going back and trying to figure out tempos for older songs sometimes can be such a pain in the ass. Cause like I did here's an example, Miss May I did a Miss May I cover, Hey Mister, which came out in what, like 2008 I think, right? Or 2010 maybe, something around then.
Yeah.
Yeah. In tracking that song, I wish I had a visual for you guys and for the audience right now, but in Logic, my tempo map was like every 2-3 bars changing 1 BPM up, 2 BPM up, 1 BPM down, 3 BPM down, 4 BPM down, 5 BPM, and it was just because it wasn't like they didn't sync it to the grid, and because of that, it was around, let's say it was 210, I don't remember what it was, but it was around whatever that 210 is. But then you have like they sped up at points to 215 and down to 205, and like trying to map that.
I've actually found that producers are doing that even more often because they don't want you to be able to emulate it. So I actually just tracked a song for a very big band a couple weeks ago, and I shit you not, he sent me the tempo, and the tempo was 120.00001, which is the maximum decimal places, at least in whatever DAW he was using, was 5 decimal points. like that, and he specifically did that so that no one could copy it or recreate it, which I find just so stupid. It's just like, who cares?
It's pretty silly.
Make it 120 and just roll on.
Yeah, that's pretty weird, bro. The big ones are all like groups of 5. Like I'm covering the whole MGK record right now, so I've been learning a lot of the songs off that, and like every song is either 185, 165, 200, 125, 120. Like not a single song is some kind of weird tempo.
Well, it's comfortable, like everything goes back to like almost that other thing where it was like the industry standard, and that just feels comfortable. That has became the industry standard.
Yeah, 100%. Cool.
By the way,
all right, so go ahead, Dimjar.
I just want to expand a little bit more because I really like the direction where you guys took it. So not only for quantizing, but let's step up the game. And I'm gonna ask, what do you think about samples and sampled drums?
Oh,
I mean, I know Wyatt Stav, but what's yours?
1,000%. So the reason why you sample, the only sample I use is a kick and snare, and the more I've been recording with in these studios, the more I've understood why. So you can't understand something until you've done it. So my whole life, I didn't really care about samples, but now that I'm recording as much as I am, I understand them. A snare drum sounds like ass. It does. I don't care what anybody says. It does not sound good. A snare top doesn't sound good. A snare bottom doesn't sound good. And consistency. The consistency of the snare drum sounds like crap. Like if you play a song, your snare drum from the very beginning of the song to the end of the song is going to be 2 different pitches. It just happens. We play a live instrument that is very just raw. It's just a raw instrument that can move and it's malleable. So because of that, you have to have some kind of consistency. So having the snare, first of all, snare drum is a must. It's 100% a must. To having a good presence of a drum set, the snare drum is everything. And it's crazy. It's taken me years and years of understanding and learning about it to where I've been like, finally a bulb clicked, and I'm like, it makes sense. It actually does, because you want consistency in the snare drum. If your snare and kick drum are not consistent tone-wise, and as far as just like even just like the ambience of coming through the overheads and the room mics, it's not going to sound good. Now, does that mean that you want to completely negate the sounds? Hell no. You want some live sounds out of it, and get good drums. Those fake drums sound freaking amazing. I don't care what anybody says. What they're, what Misha and Nolly and Matt are doing are freaking amazing. And that sound is becoming an industry standard. So again, it kind of goes back to just staying on the cusp of what sounds good. Again, there are some songs that don't require it. It all depends on the context. There's a lot of songs probably that you hear that don't have any samples at all. But if you want consistency, you have to have samples.
Yeah, well, because you know, again, this is a pretty hot topic, and I've been discussing it with a lot of people, and this is what I was always trying to. First, I was okay. I'm gonna take it back a little bit. When I started, I was, my drum set is pretty cheap. It's cheap ass, and my mics are cheap. And for the longest time, I was trying to make them sound good. Of course, they did not. And one day, Wyatt just told me, "Why don't you use samples?" And I was so against that. I felt like I'm cheating the people. I'm cheating myself. This is, bullshit. Whatever, whatever. But seeing, having the opportunity to see even once the reaction and the response of people listening to your drumming, saying, "Jesus, this sounds good," and I came here for the sound and stuff like that. Um,
What would be the cheating aspect? Like, what in your mind is cheating?
well, in my mind, I was cheating because, you know, as you said, samples have this consistency. They sound awesome, and
Mhm.
I feel that I'm cheating in terms of that. I don't play as consistent as these samples are, and
Mhm.
I want it to be 100% genuine. However, I want to make this my profession, so in order to do so, I need to have a competitive sound, which I do not.
Mhm.
And I started using them just as, like means of production and means of recording songs, because this way I can actually have I can be a good competitor to all the other drum channels. And
Yeah.
now I'm a huge advocate for that. I mean, if you can afford to buy a DW drum set and mics that costs several times the price of my car, sure, go for it. And if you can mix and master it good enough, or you have a guy who's doing it. But if not, and you wanna make it, be it as a YouTube drummer, or some small band, or just pretty much anything doing with drums, hell yeah, I mean, nobody cares apart from yourself and other musicians, but nobody from your audience in your crowd cares if this is a sample, if you're using heel toe or heel up or heel down. Nobody cares if you're using French grip, American or
Yeah.
German.
At
Everybody
the end of the
wants a
day, it's
good
you.
sound. Yeah, and
At
if
the end of the day,
if
it's you.
and it made me actually realize that I was focusing on the wrong goal, because my goal was for me to feel good with myself and feel like I'm this awesome drummer. But the actual goal is to entertain people, and you can't
Mhm.
entertain people with bad sound. So yeah, just
Yeah.
commit to the
I
right goal, I
totally.
guess.
And at the same time, I mean, I'm always playing devil's advocate. Do you need samples? Well, this is what I would say: is do you have to have samples? No. There's drummers out there that are so damn talented. Nobody cared. Like, what's his name? Eric Aprada or whatever. He's the
Oh,
Tampa drummer that.
Spanish guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He doesn't use any samples. He doesn't need them. He's so beyond talented that you don't need to see that, So I understand all the aspects of it. Like I said, at the end of the day, it just comes down to context. Like, what is your goal? If your goal, your personal goal, is to be competitive in these drumming videos and putting out drumming content, then yeah, I would say that's a key aspect. At least learn it, and it doesn't have to be completely sampled. You can mix samples in lightly. All of my drum mixes have samples in them, but they're mixed at, like, for example, my snare drum is at unity, which means 0, but my snare sample is at -6. So it's a balance. It's not fully sampled, but there's some characteristics of the drum and the shells that are coming out of it, and then a balance of the actual triggered sample sound.
Yeah, totally, totally.
So what's your philosophy on FPS when recording motion, like
Oh
as
shit.
intense motion as what we do at the kit?
So, frames per second, I jump around like crazy. Honestly, I always go back to 24, and the only reason why I go back to 24 is because I could keep my ISO low. the end of the day, to me, ISO is king. So keeping my ISO as low as it can go is most important because that's going to get the most information, the most crisp information that I can get to manipulate. I'm shooting in HLG, which is a hybrid log gamma format right now, and it allows me to go down to 160 ISO. So that's priority number one. Then my frames per second come in. So 24 frames is the lowest that you can kind of go shooting in 4K. But I've noticed it's cool sometimes to do slow motion, and then in with those slow motion shots and things like that. My camera can only do 1080, which is why I'm switching over to that red. But being able to do slow motion shots, what I've been doing recently is I've been shooting everything in 24 frames and then a couple shots in 1080, but it's at the 100, it's at 160. So I could slow it down, but I still import them into Final Cut as 24 frames. So everything is still being imported in as 24 frames and exported out as 24 frames, but I'm able to shoot with those higher frame rates to get slow motion shots. Um, and actually, I did this unknowingly, but on our DSLRs, you have the availability to increase your shutter speed. And increasing the shutter speed in movies and video, you're really not supposed to do that. It's kind of a no-no. It's always supposed to be double whatever your frame rate is. So if I'm shooting at 24 frames, my shutter speed should be at 50, no matter what. If I'm shooting at 30, it should be at 60. So what
But
it
we
does is it to get a natural motion. But I've found that if I increase my shutter speed, you get kind of this like crazy looking artistic vibe where you're seeing more information than what the eye sees. Because that's really what 24 frames is kind of what the eye sees, if that makes sense. That's why the majority of my material is shot on a 50 millimeter lens at 24 frames, because that is the 50 millimeters is like what your eyes, the millimeters that your eyes can see, and then what we perceive is 24 frames a second in life. So that's why we like to gravitate towards that. But yeah, I do like kind of switching up the shutter speed sometimes.
Yeah, with higher shutter speed, you can actually see whenever if you've got a close up on a let's say crash, and if the shutter speed is higher, you can actually see the symbol jittering and bending, which will
Yeah,
look like just blur with double the frame rate.
yeah.
And I'm
Oh
shooting,
yeah.
yeah, I'm shooting in 24 as well, and this is one of yet it's yet another topic that me and Wyatt are talking about. And his favorite is 30 because it's more smooth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been, you know, I want to get as natural motion blur as possible, but I really love that symbol shake and bending
Well,
and
you can still shoot. You can shoot in anything, and in your project file, like your project session, make your project session whatever you want it to be. You can shoot at 24 frames and then put the session file at 30 frames. It won't look good, but it's better to go down. So, um, but the reason why it
well,
loves 30 is
it's
also because of YouTube, because YouTube only allows 4K at 30 frames. So you can't actually shoot 24 frames 4K and upload it to YouTube. It won't be 4K. The only 4K, true 4K videos have to be shot on 30 frames, which I don't understand YouTube's reason for that, but that's just like that's the way they do that, I guess. I wish they would change. But I like shooting in 30. Like I said, at the end of the day, my biggest thing is crispness. So if I'm shooting in 30 frames, now I'm reducing the amount of ISO that I can allow, if that makes sense.
yeah, totally.
So back to shutter speed. So what's the deal? You go up in shutter and you get more detail, and you don't like it. It doesn't look as smooth. You get like a choppy feel, but then you can see the flex and symbols and stuff like that. Is that the case?
Yeah.
Yeah. Think of
So
the
if I'm
shutter as the shutter is what is opening and closing. So if you have a faster shutter speed, then it's opening and closing really fast. So think of it like if you take think of it like if you just blink your eyes really fast and start moving your hand. that's kind of what your camera's doing. So when you're bringing that shutter speed at a higher rate, now it's taking in every single frame faster, if that makes sense. Like each, like as the shutter is moving, as the shutter's just opening, closing, opening, closing.
So if I wanted to get that effect that you guys are describing at 30 FPS, what would my shutter speed have to be? It would have to be above 60, right?
Anything, yes, anything above
Well,
60,
I'd
which now
say
you're hurting your ISO.
yeah, I'd say at least triple your FPS, so at least 90.
In order to
You
get
wouldn't
that
have to go.
effect?
You wouldn't have
Okay.
to. You wouldn't have to go like that high. I've been able to do it on. I've been able to do sometimes like I'm trying to think if I'm on 24 what I've put it up to sometimes I've only gone up to like 75 like I mean really I would just test it. I would just sit there with the camera and just kind of like it just kind of increase it. What's so funny is how I found that issue or how I found that out as a thing is I didn't know anything about cameras, so I didn't know anything about shutter speed. And so I was just cranking my shutter speed because my exposure was too high. So that was the only reason why I would crank my shutter speed because my exposure was so high, everything was blown out. But if I cranked my shutter speed, now my exposure goes down, and now I can actually get a decent looking picture. And then I would upload that on my computer and be like, "What the fuck? Like everything looks crazy," but it was cool. It's artistic. It's artistic. It's cool, and I'll do it sometimes. It just depends. Honestly, it's like a mood thing for me. Like I'll go in and be like, well, I want to do this. I want to do something different. You know.
I um I achieved what you described in some videos, and I didn't know how the fuck I did it, but now I know how to get it back because I really
Yeah,
liked
there
the
you
way
go.
it looked. I
Yeah.
literally pulled up.
There you go.
I pulled up the videos that I was thinking of, and as Dimitar was describing the symbol, I'm watching my Bloody Valentine
Yeah.
cover, and I could see the symbol doing that. And I was like, "Oh fuck, that's exactly what they're
Yeah,
talking
if you
about."
go up real high, your drumsticks will look wobbly.
Yeah,
Oh
It'll
really?
look like everything. Yeah, your drumsticks will look like spaghetti.
No way. I'm gonna fuck
It's
around
cool
with
though.
this.
It's cool though. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I think I've gone way too far with that. I mean, you said you've gone about 75. I think at some
Yeah.
point I was filming, and it was back in the days where I too didn't know how to use a camera properly, and this was the
Yeah.
only thing that I knew, that in order to get more choppy frames, more choppy sticks, because I liked how aggressive that looked.
Yeah.
I knew just crank up your shutter speed. So at some point, I think I shot at 30 frames per second and with shutter speed 250. And man, I mean, it's like
I don't think I've even gone up that high ever. So that's cool.
that's like poor man's slow motion, because once you hit a
Yeah.
crash, you're seeing for several seconds how it's bending because of all the information and all the frames. So what this is happening because as you probably know, when you're, let's say, taking a picture, the shutter speed is the amount of time that your sensor, the camera sensor, is being exposed to the picture. And if something's moving on the picture, the lower the shutter speed, I mean, which means that the slower the shutter is, the more blur you're going to get, because for that amount of time, the object is moving and it's blurring out. But when it's higher, and let's say if your shutter speed is 1/100th, this means that it's closing every 100th of a second. And this way you get more crisp shots. So multiplied by 24, this means that each frame will be much more crisp and will have much more still information rather than blurred. So
But also at the end of the day, you also have to think about your ISO and your aperture.
yeah, yeah, of course.
When you're affecting one, you're affecting everything. So that it's hard to grasp, like especially starting off. I mean, I can't remember how many damn YouTube videos I watched of understanding the triangle of those three things, that how each thing affects things, which also brings it back to even music. So, for example, I've just now started getting into color grading, and I know nothing. But what I do know is how cool it is, how what you do is how film industries do a print LUT. So they do a print LUT, which is the LUT that comes out, but you also want a log that's that kind of flattens the picture out. And it's funny how the aspects of that is just like music. And like you want a flat kind of canvas to work with, and then you want to saturate. And what saturation does in drums, what saturation does in video, it's so similar and so cool to kind of like get into that world. If to anybody that's trying to like get into the video world, I promise you, look up working in cinematic LUTs and look up how movies, because I always wondered like how do movies make movies? Like we make movies every day. We make stupid little YouTube videos every day. But how do these massive multi-billion dollar companies do it? And learning how they do it is really cool, because then you can take those ideas and those concepts and apply them to your own. And it's the exact same thing, you know?
Totally, yeah.
Very cool. Well, been a great podcast.
It has been, Wyatt, dude.
Yeah, it's almost 1 hour.
Yes, sir.
Oh, damn. Time flies.
That was
that was
fast.
Well, Dim, man, it was absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm gonna have to connect with you after this.
Of course, man. I'd be, I'll be honored to do so.
Awesome. Oh, yeah.
So I'll just probably ask Wyatt to give you my contacts and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have any, Wyatt and Michael? Do you have any final words? Do you want to?
The last thing I would like to say is, first of all, I am unbelievably humbled by Wyatt's skills and what he's doing right now in the space, and I feel like he's like the flag for us, like beginners. He's like the flag for all of us trying to get to a level of that he's achieved, being on Modern Drummer and getting the content, getting the views, getting these fans. Like that's what we all want, and we're all just like, we're rooting for him to do it and do it big. And I'm stoked to see him grow as a musician too, man. Like I'm stoked to see what the future is. I'm really stoked for next year, because I'm gonna finally get to see you guys on tour and stuff. So it's gonna be fun to actually like shake hands in April. So when all that stuff actually happens, that's gonna be the most fun.
Dude, that was really sweet of you. Thanks. That meant a
Yeah,
lot, Mike.
thanks, man.
You're welcome, dude. You're welcome, man. You're a pioneer.
Yeah. Thank you, dude. Thank you. I guess that makes sense, right? It's like, if I can figure out how to do it, then we all can, which is lit. Because it's always hard. It's always hard being a drummer, man. It's always tough because I don't know how to put it. Let me figure it out. You can take away drums from a song and put acoustic guitar in a vocalist's hands and still have a composition. And still have a composition that'll do really, really well, So like the drums are like something. It's a weird relationship drummers have with their projects. It's an afterthought, but at the same time, have you ever listened to a metal track without drums? It sounds like shit.
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's like the appreciation isn't there, especially now that everybody just fucking writes in MIDI and every guitar player thinks they're a drummer. That drives me up the walls. Oh. But
Don't even get us started.
I know, dude. But it's this weird place that drummers are stuck in, where we aren't always necessary and needed in a project, and then we're kind of super valued at times, and it can be tough. It can be tough. So I'm glad that you think that and you said that. I appreciate that, Mike.
You're welcome,
also,
dude.
Huge thank you for taking the time today to sit down and chat with
man.
us.
Thank you so much.
Anytime. I am a wealth of knowledge, and to me, it's more fun to talk to you guys because I learn too. And that's the most important thing, the biggest takeaway.
Cool. Well, with that said,
All right.
I just DM'd you Dimitar's number and his YouTube page. You can check that out. And it's been a great time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you both. See you next time. Bye-bye.
See you, man.
Okay.